imagine you would say yes. Note-taking is one of the most popular ways to learn and study for different classes. But what if the way you wrote your notes was actually not a good way to do so? What if you discovered a better way which could help you understand the content better? What if a different way could help you memorize the content better? Have you ever thought about the possibilities that could come with using different study methods? There's so many different methods to take your notes, like mind maps, visual note-taking, etc. The list of options is endless. You just need to find the one that is right for you and help you save so much time and effort. Finding better methods won't only save you time, but also can help you manage your stress and keep you less overwhelmed by everything. Looking at traditional linear notes can be really overwhelming, so cutting them down in a way you'll be able to understand can have so many different benefits.
The act of note-taking goes back thousands of years. It is a practice that is significant to the intellectual behavior of humans. Early civilizations used it first, starting with the Greeks and Egyptians. Back then, notes were written on wax tablets and papyrus and mainly used to document important events and often religious stories. Later in medieval Europe, scholars interpreted manuscripts to preserve knowledge, copying down documents. During the 15th century, the invention of the printing press changed the way information was spread. People developed new ways to organize and summarize information in their notes. During the scientific revolution, people like Newton and Galileo began using a more systematic approach. After the Industrial Revolution, the rise of standardized education, linear note-taking became the norm. Lecture-based learning and standardized exams led to the use of structured and sequential note-taking. Linear note-taking, though familiar, isn't as helpful as we all might think. Linear note-taking is a passive task which encourages memorization over active processing. This form of note-taking divides concepts into sections, which prevents cross-referencing and connections. Cognitive load theory, proposed by psychologist John Sweller, suggests that the brain has a limited capacity for processing information. When taking linear notes, people just write for minutes on end, which might lead to cognitive overload. Then they struggle to handle the amount of complex information. Linear notes means that your brain relies on sequential cues. There are other methods of note-taking that are much more effective. Mind maps combine visuals and text to promote holistic understanding. Similarly, concept maps show interlinked nodes and relationships. It promotes deep processing rather than shallow processing. Visual note-taking consists of sketches, diagrams, and annotations. Dual coding theory, introduced by Alan Pavio, emphasizes the benefits of combining verbal and visual information in learning. Spaced repetition, another psychological technique, involves reviewing information at intervals over time. Abstract note-taking methods help with that, as the visual cues aid with memory recall during review sessions. The combination of visuals and text provides an extra layer of support for memory retention. Though these methods may seem unfamiliar and time-consuming, the pros outweigh the cons. These methods stimulate your mind and force you to think deeply about the content you're learning.
Do you often take notes in class?
Yeah, almost like every day in all my classes.
Yes, I do a lot.
Yeah, I do. Not in class, but I do it outside class.
Yeah, I do.
Sometimes, yeah.
So, which classes do you take notes for?
Calc, AP Chem, Spanish, anything but language.
I do take a lot of notes in calculus and sometimes biology.
AP Psych, Pre-Calc, and Chem.
My current classes, I take notes in AP Biology and my TED Ed class mostly.
I take my notes in majority of my classes, including math and social studies, science, and majority.
So all of them?
Yeah.
Right now, mostly health science, and that's it. Sometimes Chem.
AIDS, American history, and calculus.
Calc and psychology.
Okay, and how do you take your notes?
Usually on a notebook, or we have like guided notes stuff.
Well, in Spanish, I use my computer. I just like copied on the slideshow, and then same with Langan.
I mean, usually I'm given like a packet, like in calculus I'm given a packet, so I basically fill out like example problems. But in like other classes, like American history from time to time, or even biology, like I have like a notebook, and so I just like write down.
You're just copying word for word?
Not word for word exactly. I try to paraphrase, but write down an outline way both.
Usually if it's a slideshow, I'll write down the notes as fast as I can, so then after I copy the notes, I can pay attention to the teacher. If it's like the teacher is just talking, then I'll just try to take notes while they're talking.
I usually just like copy off the board.
Like, does your teacher like a slideshow or something?
I write either on notebook paper or write to guide paper.
Well, what's on the board, I just copy it down.
Usually you just either type it in a doc, what the slide or teachers say. So just
Yeah, because like when we have like major tests or like quizzes, I can like go back to my notes and like review things and like practice. I don't think so, because it's like I just copy down what the slideshow's saying, so I have to like go back and review everything.
Not if I just copy straight down, because usually I have to go back and read it. But if the teacher's just talking and I have to come up with what to write on my own, I usually remember.
Like I said, like for calculus and bio, it helps me like understand the concepts a little better, and like they're helpful when I have to like when I'm doing problems or if I'm like looking at another concept, and it just like helps me like connect everything together. But if I had to like solely study my notes, then I don't do that great with that kind of thing.
it does, and also it helps me remind the information that I need to have.
I feel like it'll help remember it for the test, but maybe not like for the final, because like right now I'm like kind of like trying to
Recall.
Not really.
Find yourself cramming and reading the notes like before a test.
I get it.
Sometimes, sometimes. American history, I cram a lot for it.
Yeah.
Kinda.
It's like low-key kind of.
Yeah.
You do?
I crammed the night before.
I do that too.
From the many results that we gathered from high school students through interviews, we found that most students take notes in a linear manner, writing all their information in a huge lump of words. Likewise, little to no students take their notes using abstract methods such as charts and graphs. The students also noted that their note-taking methods don't help them remember information in the long run, as they stated that they often find themselves cramming information before important assignments like tests and quizzes. As for the classes that they actually take notes in, the students mainly reported classes that are fact and knowledge based, like American history, AP biology, and calculus classes. We also gathered information from a Google form, and we found that the responses were the same. 88.2% of students who filled the form out take notes using a structured outline and sentences, and 76.5% of students reported that they feel their note-taking doesn't actually help them. An interesting thing that we found from our poll was that although students said that they don't feel their studying is effective, only 41.2% have thought of changing the way they study. We believe this is because changing what you are used to and beginning to take notes in an abstract way can be intimidating. We also asked about the way that students are encouraged to take notes in their academic classes. Most said that they copied exactly from the slideshow that the teacher is teaching from, and the next popular answer was filling out guided notes that their teacher gave them. Although these students could take notes however they desire, 82.4% of students reported that they feel the way their teachers implement note-taking is not helpful. Let's see what the teachers have to say about note-taking.
Do students take a lot of notes in your class? No, unless I force them to.
They do.
Yes. How do they take their notes?
Usually it is kind of like free choice, so I don't give them necessarily like one way they have to take their notes. A lot of them choose to like doodle notes, some of them choose to just write straight. Usually I'll have a slideshow up with stuff that they need to get down.
Some of them take notes with their laptops and some take handwritten notes.
Honestly, I feel like it varies. I feel like I don't go around and look at what kind of notes people are taking, but it's just like copying down whatever is either on the slide or on the board.
Have you ever like done guided notes or recommended a different style?
I do guided notes mostly for honors so that they're motivated to write stuff down. But yeah, just like fill in the blank or like charts or like graphs or whatever we're doing.
I find that if you give students the PowerPoint or guided notes, they don't necessarily pay attention in class. And so then they're not making a connection with the materials, therefore they're not going to do well on the test or the class.
Do you think it helps them in the long run?
I think it does.
I think so, yeah. I mean, handwriting triggers long-term memory, which in turn reinforces knowledge. So,
How do you think your class feels about taking notes?
I don't know. I think on long days, like where we've got a lot of notes we got to do, it can get a little by the end. But for some of them, I think that they almost prefer getting that information to them directly rather than me being like, well, here's this packet, go ahead and read and do it. Like sometimes I think there's a benefit in like hearing that information and getting that information explained, especially in a subject as technical as psych. Sometimes it's that personal touch of just being able to like, you know, share a little story or share a little diatribe to kind of like guide that understanding, you know?
I think they get overwhelmed sometimes because health science 1 is a lot of information, and sometimes the units can be very long, so it's kind of, I guess maybe it gets a little uninteresting at some point when you're just constantly taking notes. However, if you're going into the healthcare field, you just have to prepare for that, because in college it's going to be like a lot more harder. So
I feel like they hate it, but also you have to write something down to learn it. Like, it's painful, but you gotta do it.
The teachers that we interviewed reported that they do not implement one single way to note take. For the most part, they give their students freedom in the way that they take notes, whether it be copying from a PowerPoint or guided notes that the whole class goes over together. The teachers say that the way that their students take notes is effective because they get the information that they need, and after, they're able to study it in the way that is best for them. What we concluded from our primary research was that a majority of students believe that their note-taking strategies do not truly help them memorize and embed information into their knowledge, proving our claim that linear note-taking is not effective.
It is important to note that there is a substantial amount of evidence accumulating from the student poll results, student interviews, and teacher interviews that demonstrate the majority of students and teachers alike have not considered other forms of note-taking. Due to the history and prevalence of note-taking we previously discussed, we can assume that linear note-taking is not just traditional but the norm. It is viewed by most people as being more information-dense, familiar, and less difficult. There is the most structure already in place to support linear note-taking. In schools, that is the most common. It can also be argued that this method is most effective in the current age due to digital forms of note-taking, which can reduce the time necessary for students to copy the same information. We would like to take a step back to shift the perspective to shed light on other forms of note-taking. While there have been technological advances that increase the efficiency of linear note-taking, it is still far less beneficial for students than methods such as mind mapping.
High school can often feel like a battlefield, scattered with encroaching deadlines, tests, and the never-ending battery of new information. We often find ourselves desperately scrambling to take notes to encapsulate the knowledge spiraling around us. Here's the harsh truth. Linear note-taking is often a completely passive spectator sport rather than an active intellectual activity. We often embody stenographers, blankly transcribing from a teacher's lesson or a slideshow. This rote memorization may allow us to get over a test, but it sets us up to quickly forget all the information we crammed. It fails to engage actual critical thinking. Studies at Harvard University firmly confirm this theory by revealing that sentence-based traditional note-taking leads to a weak ability to recall and retain information. If we take a step back and picture our brain as a network of neurons patiently waiting to be sparked into an array of vibrant connections, linear note-taking will leave these neurons closer to dormant, isolated into organized rows. The mind mapping method is more akin to a vibrant explosion of color filled with diagrams and interconnected ideas. Rather than a one-dimensional line, mind mapping creates a web of connections. It is important to acknowledge that this is not just a hypothetical wishful thinking. Research from Princeton University shows that mind mapping significantly improves information retention, recall, and comprehension when compared against traditional note-taking. Additionally, the stress of cramming pages upon pages of notes the night before an exam is a feeling we all know too well. A mind map comes with the inherent ability to compress and connect information. Studies originating from UC Berkeley show that mind mapping can hold up to 6 times as much information in the exact same amount of space as linear note-taking.
To conclude, the evidence cannot be ignored. Linear note-taking is a thing of the past. Abstract note-taking methods dramatically enhance your learning experience.